The first thing I'm going to do is make the skeleton out of an aluminum foil ball. And after doing the clay on the aluminum foil, I will take a ball stylus, wrap it in aluminum foil, and then wrap it in a thin layer of clay without the clay on the aluminum foil, and then remove the aluminum foil and clay tube after trimming the ends and bake that to create a clay tube. Then I'm going to cut the clay tube in half and sand the edges of the clay tube and glue them together with bacon bond. Then I would bake them and wrap them in tape. Then I wrapped the Minion's base in sandpaper and sanded the ends of the tubes to conform to the edge of the Minion. After this, the Minion is wrapped with another layer of clay, and the goggles are pressed into place and blended into the body with more pieces of clay. After that, the front and back rims of the goggles are added. Small balls of clay are placed in the eye sockets to create the eyes. After that, a circle of clay is cut in half and used to make the eyelids for the Minion. After this, a snake of clay was used to create the little hinges on the edges of his goggles, and then small little circles of clay were pressed into the edges of the rim of the glasses to make the screws or nuts on the glasses. After this, a small thin piece of clay was used to create the band for his glasses or his goggles. After this, a piece of clay was used to create the edge of his bandana, and more clay was added in and blended outward until the two pieces meet to create the bandana. A thin piece of clay was used to create the bottom edge of his inner vest, and then pieces were added on and blended in together with the bottom edge of his vest to make the rest of the vest or coat or inner coat, inner jacket, inner shirt, inner outer shirt. Wrinkles were added to his arm with small snakes of clay being blended in. This probably would have worked better if the clay on the arm had been left unbaked. This is when I realized his inner shirt is not existent, so I added a small collar piece and blended that in with the rest of the Minion's body and put the wrap around his body, the cloth wrap. The belt was wrapped around his body, and then a small piece of clay was folded over and placed over the top edge of the inside of the belt to make it look like the belt was folded into a knot. Then the belts had the buckles added on. I made and baked a clay banana, which was replacement for his pew pew thing. After that, I made his compass, which went on and then was immediately hidden by his outer jacket to where you never ever see the compass again. This is where I carved the button holes for the back of his jacket, and then I added buttons which are only on one side of the jacket and not the other. I then cut a strip of clay that was rolled flat with a roller in order to make the belt for his shoulder strap. After this, I added a large pocket to the back of his coat by folding a piece of clay to make a bulky pocket shape. Then I wrapped a piece of clay that I had cut in the shape of his sword sheath with a piece of clay to work as the strap, and attached and blended it into the strap on his shoulder. After this, I added a piece of clay and a piece of wire to become the handle of his sword, which was glued together with liquid Sculpey. After this, I created the end of the belt for his shoulder strap. And I also added the buckle. I cut a square inside the middle of the buckle and folded a piece of clay over and added it to the center, tucking it into the ends to make it look like a piece of folded belt that had been pushed through the belt buckle. Then I added the details to the belt buckle. After that, I added the hat, which was a larger, thicker piece of flat clay than most of the other pieces because I needed it to have structure to hold onto his head without collapsing. I then blended the hat into itself, folded the edges over, and his hat was finished. This is where I built the mast by adding some aluminum foil to a piece of wire. I was able to build the mast. Then I flattened the sides by pressing them into the desk and smoothed the sides of the bottom of the mast with a palette knife to give it a squarer shape. The round part of the mast that he stands on, I'm not really sure what it's called, I added by shaping a piece of wire into a circle by wrapping it around a orange juice bottle and making it round. And then I coated it in clay and smoothed the clay with a palette knife. The texture of the wood for the mast was added with a sculpting tool, and the top half of the mast was created by adding clay, which I smoothed it in but left it rough so it looked like it had some woody texture to it. He was then placed on the mast and his foot was blended in. I removed him after I started to blend the foot in because he was just sort of in the way. Then I blended the clay for the foot to make the foot and added the top half of his boot and blended that into the shoe. After that, a folded piece of clay was added to the top to create the cuff of the boot, the upper cuff of the boot, but you couldn't see that because the mast was in the way. I show how I did it with the second boot though. After making the boots, Mage added the hands. He added the fingers and the hands by having small balls of clay that he sculpted together, and then he added flat pieces of clay to create the cuffs of his coat, the wrist cuffs of his coat. And after that, it looks like he primed it white with white paint and then started painting the colors like the blue of the ocean and the brown for the wood of the mast. Mage then used a forbidden chocolate color for the coat and the hat of the Minion / Jack Sparrow, Minion Sparrow, I don't know. The boots had a slight more gray color added to it, which made them kind of more green in tone, but he added some gray to it to make it a different color of brown. He then painted the undercoat a blue color and painted the gloves of the Minion black. The Minion himself was painted a banana yellow. His eyelids were also painted banana yellow. And his banana was painted, of course, banana yellow. The goggle strap was painted black. And the goggles were painted gold, even though the goggles on most Minions are The silvery color, I looked and saw that some of the older ones where like they were in the past, they were painted gold. They were actually a gold color in the past photos of them, so I chose to go with gold. Well, I didn't paint them gold. Mage painted them gold. And it looks like he tried to darken up the belt because it wasn't a dark enough brown, and then he used a light yellowy brown to paint the buckles. I'm assuming he did this to make the gold show up better when he painted the gold over the top of it, because it looked like he was having difficulty with getting the gold to show up strongly on the goggle. He then painted the bandana red and the sword silver, or a metallic-y silver. Then pink stripes were painted onto his sash or wrap or whatever it is. His eyes were painted brown because Jack and the Minion have brown eyes. Then everything was given a dry brush to give it like an aged appearance. The eyes and the base were coated in resin to give it a glossy appearance. Mod Podge was added to give the ripples of the ocean. This really didn't have a very strong effect. I think maybe we should have used something thicker. And it was dry brushed to give it more of a watery look, but it didn't really show up very strongly. And then we're on to the reveals.
Ba na ba na 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 ba na ba na na na.